Today, we're having a really fun conversation, which is a little bit different for us. We talk about business of the V, we talk about all kinds of things, and we usually start with menstruation. Today, we're starting with puberty, and we're speaking to Dr. Lisa Klein, who's a practicing pediatrician and co-founded, really, an education company for parents and kids to learn about puberty together. And the two of us were like salivating. We were so excited and also so sad that she didn't exist when we were raising our now adult children.
Absolutely. She's number one, just a warm person who everybody would want as their pediatrician. But what a wealth of knowledge, especially these days where so many, young kids, really, teenagers and tweens, as she puts it, are gathering really inaccurate information.
And lots of it.
And lots of it from social media and from friends. So she and her co-founder really do set the record straight. She's also an author, which I think is great because people have reinforcement of all the information that she is providing.
One of the things that I found so fascinating is when you were asking about the actual change in young people experiencing puberty earlier. And I think people will be shocked to learn how many social factors can influence that. So take a listen. She's really fun and informative.
Welcome to the Business of the V. Hello, friends and colleagues. I'm Dr. Alyssa Dweck.
And I'm Rachel Braun-Sherrill. Each week, we bring you the most fascinating investors, inventors, entrepreneurs, academics, and healthcare practitioners who are making things happen in women's sexual and reproductive health.
If you are a woman, know a woman, have a business, or care about your V health and wellness, fasten your seatbelts and listen in to another informative and inspiring episode.
We are so excited to have our guest today, Dr. Lisa Klein, who is a practicing pediatrician and a co-founder of the business Turning Teen, which was created to help tweens transition into adolescence without shame, secrecy, or embarrassment. Wow, that's a big mission. Tell us how you got here. You obviously are with kids all day, treating them, educating them, dealing with their parents. How do you turn that into another business?
Yeah, so about 6 years ago, as a doctor mom, starting to raise children, I have two boys that became tween-ish age, and puberty started to become on the radar in my house. And therefore, amongst many of my friends, my mom friends, between that and the day-to-day in the office of talking to parents and kids about, puberty and getting the look of deer in the headlights. Did you really say the word? Do we really have to go there? I realized, along with my co-founder, that we need more resources to help parents talk to their kids about puberty. So Turning Teen was born.
Thank goodness, because I don't see teens. Well, I see teens in my practice. I don't see pediatric patients, but my goodness, the source of highest authority is TikTok, and that's frightening. So thank goodness there is a reputable place to turn that seems very user-friendly.
Yes. And, we were finding that just even starting with the basics, with the most awesome of parents who, well-intentioned, educated, didn't even know the proper terms of anatomy for their own, right? Female parts. What's the difference between a vulva and a vagina? And so our course for female puberty classes starts with the basics. Like, we have to be able to talk about our body parts appropriately, not be embarrassed to say the word vagina or vulva, so that we can take ownership of our body, know what's going to happen to our body. And then there's tons of research showing the more we understand our bodies, the more we respect our bodies. And that, to me, the mom and the doctor, is huge.
One of the things that I've read and seen, which is very comforting, is that the more children understand the names of their anatomy and the function and how they fit together, the more likely they are to report instances of abuse or trauma. So that's sort of the dark side of education, but giving kids the tools to protect themselves seems as important as any work that can be done. So what is the business model behind Turning Teen? Turning Teen, say that 10 times fast.
So we call it Turning Teen, but really it's Turning Tween, Turning Teen, whatever, right? We're constantly evolving and changing our curriculum and joke about our name. But the business model started as let's teach parents and children together, because kids go to school, in some school, not all, in some states, not all, there's a puberty curriculum, which for the most part is usually 1 hour in an entire year, where somebody, maybe someone qualified, probably someone not qualified, is teaching kids about their bodies and puberty and labeling on a black and white photocopy diagram. Here's your uterus, here's your ovaries, very basic stuff, but it's not done with the parent. So what kid comes home at this age, right, as a tween or a teen, and tells their parents anything besides, how was your day? It was good. Right? So they're not getting that detailed conversation. So the whole idea is start the conversation together. Come to the class together. Because again, if you can start talking science and puberty and anatomy with kids, those kids will say, oh, I can talk to my parent about awkward stuff. We survived that. Maybe I'll talk to them about sex. Maybe I'll talk to them about drugs. Maybe I'll talk to them about difficult relationships and situations. So we just really believe in starting the conversation together. So we started Turning Teen in people's homes and their family rooms with 5 kids at a time. And now we do huge programs, even in auditoriums. And then as we developed and changed over the years, now we even do programs just for parents or programs in schools, but always accompany the school program with a parent program. So everyone's learning together.
I'm amazed. First of all, kudos to you, because I would imagine dealing with the parents is probably much harder than dealing with the tweens, but I digress.
Pediatrics in general.
Yes, it's very dramatic. But, by the time they get to me as a gynecologist, it seems like the girls are kind of in 2 camps. They either have such an attitude towards their guardian, mother, father, whoever, whatever authoritative person is coming with them for their visit, or they have the best, relationship ever. So I'm guessing that whatever you're fostering in these young ones will translate to a better relationship with their parent about this later on. Would you say that that's occurring?
I definitely think so, especially when you look at the return rates for our classes and how they come back with their other kid, whether it's for the boys class or the second girls class, to talk more in depth about, okay, I've gone through puberty and now I'm about to get my period, or I have my period. And we go through details on menstruation, which is practically a whole class in itself, as you know, as a gynecologist. So I definitely think that just even the ability to joke about it, laugh about it, be embarrassed about it together, that itself is a bonding experience.
Are these in-person classes, online, in schools, full of auditorium? I'm imagining they're very well attended.
Everything and anything in between. So we started tiny, right? And just organically grew word of mouth. And thanks to COVID, one positive thing from COVID pandemic is we started doing more and more classes online and on Zoom so we can reach bigger audiences. We even have some of our classes pre-recorded now. You can be like, oh, it's a rainy day. We're home. I want to take a class on puberty with you, and let's just turn it on and take it.
I can remember when my kids came home and said, let's watch a class.
Oh, right. So it's definitely the parent needs to typically instigate this. And yes, we sometimes go into schools or have big, auditoriums filled with 100, 200 people to do a class. We do a lot of partnering for private classes, whether it's, we actually have some physician offices that love to bring us in and host something for their patients. Or Girl Scouts is a big one. We do stuff with Girl Scout troops. Anyone that's into like, yep, I'm here to help you and I want a resource for my family or my clientele, we think it's great. I've done stuff with entrepreneur dad groups. The dads want more information on how to talk to their kids about sex or porn or puberty. And so I've talked to just them and I reached people internationally. I'll talk to anybody because anyone I can help, it means you're helping your kids.
I love this. I have to say, I have a lot of young patients who have two dads as parents, and they need a lot of assistance. After all, they haven't personally menstruated. I think that first menstruation can be a little bit traumatic for everybody. I'm curious though, because, we all bring different cultural and value based thoughts to the table. Do you get a lot of pushback from some of your parents when you want to speak openly or directly about certain subject matters that maybe some parents don't think is appropriate?
Yeah. So you're probably mostly referring to sex.
Of course I am.
You're going for there. And yes, so here's the deal that I tell everybody up front is puberty classes are not sex ed classes. And while we would love to incorporate it all and teach sex ed as well, we know as a business that parents need to take some baby steps, many of them, not all. And so our class is focused on puberty, breast development, pubic hair, menstruation, for boys, all of the things that go with that, ejaculation and masturbation and all of that. And sure, we explain what is the purpose of puberty. The purpose of puberty is for reproduction. So one day you can have a baby if you want to. We do not talk about sex in our class. It's usually always written on an anonymous note card for a question.
Absolutely.
They say, whoever asks me a question, come back and I will answer that question for you, after the class. But sometimes, people ask things that we're not ready to discuss here today because it would be an entirely different, full hour-long class. So that definitely becomes an issue for some.
Well, we see that even when Alyssa and I are speaking in person or online to large groups of women who are way past puberty and are closer to menopause, they also want to ask the questions anonymously. So one of the things that's so striking to me is you are filling this incredible void in sex education. And we've said this before, but not all the states in the US require sex education. A subset of those that require it don't require it to be medically accurate, which I always repeat because people think I'm making it up. There are states that mandate sex education that don't require it to be medically accurate. There are more states that teach abstinence than consent. You combine that with the ubiquity of porn, and we have kids growing up with none of the fundamentals that you're talking about. So I imagine when people hear about you, especially parents, they're ravenous. How are you keeping up with the demand? Are you and your co-founder adding more instructors? I know you talked about doing some that are pre-recorded, but I can only imagine that this is exploding and will continue to do so because you found this big white space where people don't have information.
Yeah. So first of all, come on, business. We'll take on more. We're hungry and we're passionate, right? So we always talk about how we are kind of a passion project turned into a business. And we just figure it out as we go. We're amazing working women, right? So we can do it all, no problem. We have had over the years a few different instructors join our team, and some of them have done more programming than others. And though they do in-person programs or some Zoom programming for us, we are always looking for more people to join our team, but we're particular, right? We want that person who can capture the audience and teach, but joke around and connect with the kid and the parent. But we want to hit bigger audiences, right? Like I want to scream from the rooftops for some famous person who's passionate about parenting topics. Like, hey, get me on your TikTok or Instagram because I can share so much awesome stuff.
That's actually accurate.
Right. Which is medically accurate in a fun, modern way. So, but we want to be able to reach bigger audiences, work with more people, because these children, which they still are, right? Teenagers, children, brains not developed till age 25, they need information. I mean, I am surrounded by teens all day long in the office and in my personal life with my 2 teenage children and their friends. And it's kind of scary, right? It's just super scary.
I'm curious about what your most controversial topics are. And I'm going to take a little stab here. I'm guessing Gardasil. This is a vaccination that is given to protect against HPV, a virus that's typically transmitted sexually, not always, but typically, and can lead to increased risk cervical cancer and other cancers, as well as genital warts. I'm guessing eating disorders is a common subject. And then obviously sex, which we won't really touch upon because I know that's a subject into itself. But can you comment on some of the most controversial subjects that you have to speak about with your audiences?
Yes. So I guess I have, right? I wear lots of different hats, as many of us do. So in the office as a pediatrician in private practice, seeing ages 0 through 19 every day, I would definitely say one of my toughest conversations is, well, one of the toughest things is when I tell the parent, bye-bye, it's time for your kid to have some privacy, confidentiality, learn how to advocate for themselves, whether they want to tell me they're having sex or just complain about their parent. That's all fair game in the world of pediatrics. That's super hard for parents. And most of them will agree to give their kid a little bit of space and privacy. 2 is Gardasil is, of course, I hate to say tough sell because I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm trying to protect children. But yes, there is still a insane stigma that if I give my kid Gardasil, I'm giving them permission to be promiscuous or, which is not at all true, right? So we explain, give Gardasil, you get better antibody responses the younger you are. Of all the things we vaccinate against, what's the most common thing you're going to encounter? HPV. So definitely that, I would say that's definitely on the top of the list. Eating disorders, sure. I mean, I'm the teen queen of my office. I see a ton of teenage females and some males, obviously, of eating disorders too, especially with the COVID pandemic. We saw, just as we all know, a huge increase of mental health. And so I don't want to say controversial, but just teen-parent relationships, as you mentioned, are difficult. And the constant, battling between them and that I want to be independent, but I still sometimes need you, right? It's kind of like running away, but I can't run away too close because they still might hug.
What was the name of that book? I remember when my kids were teenagers. I hate your guts, but first, please take me to the mall.
Yeah. Well, that hasn't changed in those departments.
And, by the same token, I'm curious if you have a favorite invention that has really helped your population. Something new that's come about. So what always comes to my mind for menstruating females are menstrual underwear.
Oh,
has that been like a game changer in your practice or anything else along that line that you could elucidate?
Well, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, she just took my answer.
Sorry.
Even starting turning teen, right? There was like a little bit of it. I kind of heard of it, but wow, that is a huge, huge thing that has helped so many of my patients, whether I tell them to use the underwear, however they see fit, whether they're tampon users and want to wear their white jeans and have a backup, whether they aren't, ready to use tampons but have light enough flow, they can just use the underwear, or it helped them go to camp. A ton of my patients go to summer camp and freak out and wonder, what if I get my period at camp? I'm like, no big deal. take some period underwear, or the period bathing suits now.
Sure. And gone are the days of sticking the tampon up your sleeve and scurrying off to the bathroom when you're in middle school.
Yeah. However, not totally gone. And again, I talked to them about that. They still hide it, right? It's still, if I'm carrying a purse, someone will know I have my period. If I have my fanny pack on, someone will know I have my period at school. And I say to them, yep, and that's normal. And it's good to be normal. But the stigma, it's fascinating in today's day and age that the stigma still exists. One of the most fascinating talks that I did when I was talking to this entrepreneur dads group with people from all over the world were these amazing dads that joined our conversation and joined the talk, but live in a culture where menstruation is still considered dirty. Absolutely not okay to have a conversation with your teenage female daughter about sex or anything like that. But yet they joined and they said, gosh, how do I have these conversations with my kid if it's not socially acceptable whatsoever in our culture? And that's a huge barrier for them. But kudos to some people trying to come out of the woodworks and change that dialogue.
Do you see any difference? You've been at this several years and you've been a pediatrician for longer. There's so many conversations and companies talking about menstrual care and offering different solutions and educating. Are you seeing any progress in addition to what you're doing? Are kids and parents coming in with better information, more information, anything?
I think sometimes that the kids have, whether it's all correct information, but definitely more knowledge. Or when I say, not all, obviously, and I do think there's still a huge cultural issue in families. But, when I say, hey, do you think you started puberty? The parent a lot of times is still like, oh, no. I mean, it happened today. I saw a 10-year-old girl, 50-50 if she started puberty or not, right? It can be somewhere between ages 8 and 12 about. So, the mom immediately, nope, puberty. Oh, thank God, no puberty yet. And the girl's looking at me and she goes like this because she's wearing a bra. She goes, yep, little bit of puberty. Why? She took a class. She knows she's wearing a bra because she started having some breast buds. And she knows, oh yeah, I'm in puberty, because still so many people think puberty equals menstruation.
Yeah.
And it's not. So those are my favorite scenarios when the kid knows a little more than the parent or the parent's in denial. And we like to teach, like, the reason you want to start the teaching as young as possible is because we don't send our kids to like kindergarten without doing a kindergarten roundup or visiting the school playground or here's what to expect when you're in school during circle time. But yet we're supposed to like go through puberty and not have any clue what we're doing. We prepare our kids for so many things, but not that. So we want to provide that information so you're not scared. You know what to expect. Why is my bestie going through puberty at age 9 and I'm not? It's still normal. There's just so much to normalize around it that makes me
I have two kind of more medical and one kind of serious question. In regard to the age of puberty, parents ask me a lot, people ask me a lot, and of course, I'm not a pediatrician, so I don't feel like I'm an expert in this field, about why puberty seems to be occurring earlier and earlier. And, it's definitely the milk that I'm giving my kid, or it's some pesticide or whatnot, or whatever endocrine disruptor is in the body bath they're using. What do you say about that?
So I say that there's some excellent research that's been done and, of course, ongoing. Yes, puberty is starting to happen early. A great book you might enjoy reading is called The New Puberty. Of course, I don't know if you've read it. It's by a pediatric endocrinologist. And it's co-authored, I want to say, with a pediatric psychologist, but I could be misspeaking. And it's probably in my cupboard here somewhere. But, and they talk about, a few main reasons that it's happening. So you mentioned endocrine disruptors. Those are real, but the volume that those have to occur in someone's body might be in a higher number than the average person is being exposed to, but it's significant and still being studied. And I think, well, there's definitely issues there. So environmental chemical disruptors. 2 is the obesity epidemic. So definitely we see that the higher the BMI, the more obese, the younger the puberty.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 is sad and fascinating, and it's the psychosocial stress level.
Yeah.
So kids in abusive homes, kids living in poverty, abuse, they have a younger age of puberty. And that is, documented, researched. So yes, puberty is happening earlier. And I think some of it can be prevented, and some of it we probably still don't understand why.
So here's today's hot flash. There are actually 5 stages of puberty called Tanner stages. They include multiple physical changes, including breast buds, hair growth, height increase, and menstruation. And the other more serious issue that I'm glad is much more on the radar is I would imagine you as a pediatrician and such a warm person in general are the confidant to a lot of young people who come out in your office. And have you seen that more and more? And is it becoming just okay? And what else did you have for lunch today type of conversation? Or is it still as frightening for these young kids as it always was in history?
Love the question. Totally depends, obviously, on the family. So today, walked in the room. Let's say the patient's name was Jane. Okay. All across, the arm were, their own marker, 6th grade version tattoos of the word Felix. And I said, oh, who's Felix? Oh, that's the name I go by. And my pronouns are they, them. Oh, okay. Mom's sitting there. Mom knows. Mom's referring to her child as they, them, or Felix. And we just carried on as if everything was just going about normal business, right? For sure. I see plenty, sadly, of patients who, when I kick the parent out, depending on the vibe I get, right? It might be like age 12, 13, just to start practicing. And I say, hey, what are your pronouns? Do you feel safe at home? Do you have a crush on anyone? Are you interested in dating boys, girls, both? Don't know. So often, right? Well, my parents don't know yet, but I think I'm leaning this way. Or I don't know if I feel like dating boys, girls, probably both. So you get the whole gamut. Some are for religious reasons. They feel like they can't tell their parent and they're so excited to go to college and kind of live their own, new life, which they can do with, a little less secrecy. So I see it all across the board in every which way. It's tough.
So interesting. Thank you for helping guide our young kids. Really important.
Yeah, we talk about gender identity in our programs now, which we did not initially.
That's so interesting.
We definitely disclose that we do that because once in a while we have a group that will not allow it, does not want it as part of their talk. And listen, they're paying me to give a talk, so I always encourage it, but it's definitely, hey, we include this. And when we started it, we definitely got the pay mail.
Yeah.
I would not have brought my kid to that class had I known. I mean, you're talking 3 slides out of probably 150.
Oh, wow.
And the kids know it all. It's there because the parents don't understand the verbiage, right? Like we didn't grow up in that same generation that they grow up now where my kids can use the pronouns for all their friends, like without thinking twice. Whereas we're probably a little more careful in a patient room, right? If we need to, be respectful using the right term.
So there's so much here. I mean, wish I had met you 20 years ago. Maybe not that long. 50,
Likewise.
no, not that old. So exciting, all kinds of growth. What do you see for turning teen in the future when you envision, all this good work you're doing? I would love you to be in every school, talking to every tween on the planet. Where do you see the future? Because you're still a mom, you're still a practicing pediatrician, and now you're a business owner.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see us growing, which we continue to do. Sadly, it's really hard to get into public school. The red tape and the politics and everything is really hard. So, we definitely are trying to increase our private school talks, because I just like the idea of being able to access a large group at once and teach them together so they're learning the same thing. And, talking to the boys, talking to the males, talking to the females, which we talk a little bit about each other, by the way, during our programs. The girls learn a little bit about the guys, vice versa. And then through the schools, I have access to parents. So I would say that's definitely a goal of mine, is to get into more schools, public schools too. I think that that's a really lofty goal for the time being, especially, in political climates. And then expanding our programs. We hired a social worker, and we have an anxiety program to teach kids about talking about emotions, which is a huge part, obviously, of adolescence. So we talk about emotions in all of our programs. And whatever else parents need, one of our most popular programs now is our parenting program, How to Talk to Your Kid About Puberty, Sex, and Porn. Because parents I don't think, understand the porn epidemic that is truly a problem right now. There are teen males that come into the office with erectile dysfunction because of the amount of porn they're watching. The safety issue and relationship issue of kids thinking that porn is their sex ed and that's what real sex is. So I'm going to be violent and misogynistic, et cetera, in my relationship and in my sexual activity. Like, that's scary. I have two boys that I'm raising. So porn discussions at my house is like we could be walking by each other in the hallway and I hear something on YouTube. I'm like, you're not watching porn, right? And if you are, just remember that's not real and that's edited like a movie. And then they can complete my sentences, because I think it's so important. I think to be a realist, right? They're going to watch porn. But I think if they know what they're watching, it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, I think that's a really good place to close out. And thank you so much for being our guest. This could go on all day long. We're all parents, so it's fascinating. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast at businessofthev.com for the latest trends and trendsetters in women's health and business.